Hello friends, this is Chandrakant from Mac Technologies and welcome to Top Brass. Let me also welcome my friend from Ahmedabad. He is a very senior advocate practicing in Ahmedabad High Court. His name is Nagesh Sood and he is also a very well-known human rights activist across India. Nagesh, welcome to Top Brass.
Thank you, Chandrakant. It is good to be back today. And thank you once again for bringing me on Mac.
Yes, it is our pleasure, Nagesh. So, as you know, we are discussing the human rights and our what are the legal parameters available for citizens of India. And today we would like to discuss about the right to education. So, like to know your opinion from the international perspective, how we stand as a country when it comes to right to education in India.
Well, CK, as you know, that right to education is a very important human right, which ought to be accessible to everyone without any discrimination. All children must be able to go to school and thereby benefit from the same opportunities to build a future. Now, educational instruction must also be equally gratuitous so that children from disadvantaged environments will be able to enjoy their right to education. The right to education also supposes that the objectives of learning will be attained. This means that all children have the right to benefit from a quality education adapted to their needs. We also must have teachers who are trained in techniques of teaching, which combined with pedagogy and play for purpose of arousing the children's interest in education. It is the responsibility of the countries to guarantee each child right to education. Now, education is a fundamental right and essential for exercise of all other human rights because it promotes individual freedom and empowerment and yields important development benefits. Everyone has a right to education. Education has to be free, at least in elementary and fundamental stages. Elementary education should be compulsory, and education should be directed to the full development of the human personality and for strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. So basically, we have various conventions internationally and treaties which have been signed by different countries. The first international instrument on right to education is 1960 UNESCO Convention Against Discrimination in Education. In short, we call it as CADE, which in addition to discrimination addresses equality of opportunity, access to free primary education and rights of minority groups. Article 4 of CADE sanctions the following duties and actions upon the state parties to implement the primary education free and compulsory, make secondary education in its different forms generally available and accessible to all, make higher education equally accessible to all on the basis of individual capacity, assure compliance by all with an obligation to attend school as prescribed by law. It further ensures that the standards of education are equivalent in all public educational institutions of the same level. The other covenants are Article 26, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 4 and 5 of UNESCO Convention Against Discrimination in Education, 1960, International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1965, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, 1966, Article 13 of International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 10 of Convention of Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Article 2, 22, 23, 27, 28, 32 of Convention on Rights of Child, Article 24 of Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So these are the major conventions which obligate to ensure the right of access to education and provide free and compulsory primary education to every child in the entire world.
So, as a country, we came into existence in 1947. So, the Indian government would have signed this treaty with the United Nations, and hence, I'm assuming that we have to adhere or probably implement all these provisions for the citizens of India. Is that correct in my understanding, Nagesh?
Absolutely, as a signatory of treaties and conventions under the international law, we are under obligation to provide these rights to the citizens and basically children of these countries, of our country, and also it obligates us to provide free primary education to children beginning from the age of 6 to 14. And it has actually a long history, but over the period we have come out with an act called Right to Education Act 2009. And now that there are various schemes of the government which I would like to talk in details in our next session, that has the government, doing their obligations and meeting the requirements of providing free and compulsory education to children.
So Nagesh, I think we will split our discussion in two parts. So in today's discussion, we are discussing about the global implications on the Indian education system and how it percolates down to the actual implementation. We will discuss in tomorrow's discussion. But at this point, I would like to ask you one question, which is, having signed this treaty with UN and various agencies of UN, how government of India adopt these laws, international laws, and is there a provision to have a debate, or they have to just follow these law in a verbatim format?
Well, CK, in fact, we are under obligations once we have signed these treaties and conventions to follow these treaties and provide measures for implementations of these conventions. And accordingly, we have framed a law which obligates the government to provide free education to children and secondary and higher education to everyone who are able to afford or access the same. Now, recently, you must have noticed that many countries have closed down these schools since COVID-19 outbreak, and it is just disrupting learning and education of hundreds and millions of students. Now, in the times of these crises, the schools are providing children with sense of stability and normalcy by giving them online education. There is a platform which has been put in place wherein the education is provided through online medium, and they are being connected. But unfortunately, not everybody is accessible to internet. So, of course, in cities and in bigger towns, there is internet which is accessible to everyone and is also affordable. But the plight of people who are in villages where there is no internet facility, for them, of course, it is something very difficult to achieve. And therefore, I'm sure our government is making certain provisions to provide education accessible to everyone in the entire country by providing internet and other mediums so that education can be given to every children of this country.
That's a very good point, Mr. Nagesh. In fact, if I recall, our Honorable Finance Minister made that announcement for the education sector that what they should do. And I was like pleasantly surprised that the government of India had standardized the education system from class 1 to class 12, and they had converted this course material into e-learning chapters, and they had uploaded all of that into an e-learning system. So as far as government is concerned, I think they have provided whatever they could. My humble submission is that I don't see that really being implemented by the universities, institutes, and schools in the true spirit. Because, like you said, that the online education system is going on, but I think what we really need is e-learning. I mean, we will come to the second part of your observation about the villages, but I think let's look at the urban population, which are only getting some sort of a screen time with the teacher at this point in time, where the teacher comes in front using a camera or a voice. But I think the learning is getting hit while the children are getting exposed to the school time, but they are not getting anything. That is my opinion. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, CK, as you know, that we have shifted to this mechanism very recently. First of all, the provision has been made instantly because the closure of schools were sudden, the closure of universities were suddenly done because of the ongoing pandemic. Now, to have our teachers, applying this technical system, there needs a little time and methodology that they can be used to, so that they can give that kind of learning which is equivalent to a classroom learning. There is, of course, a provision which is made, and it is an effort by all the institutions that somehow they are imparting education in the form of online learning and uh, giving access to a child or a student to be able to, be present, and there is an imparting of education. Of course, these students and the teachers are slowly getting used to this methodology, but I'm sure e-learning and learning online is one of the greatest and a comfortable medium for not only teachers but for the students to be in at home in their comfortable area and learn. So I think that will take a little time, and as you mentioned that the government has made an effort by compressing the syllabus and making certain changes in the syllabus so that it has become easier for students for e-learning. So I'm sure after a little while, when teachers and students get used to it, they'll be more comfortable and be able to use it to the maximum extent once the methodology is adopted in a positive way.
So, viewers, I would like to say that this is a very, very touchy subject, because all of us are parents, and our children are going through, because of this COVID, there is an issue. Their normal development is getting slowed down a little bit. So what we have decided, Nagesh will come and talk to us in lot more detail about the actual implementation of these international laws, which allows all citizens of India certain level of education. However, I would like to say from my own, as my own opinion, that I think there's high time that schools look at what is happening globally and get into K-12 type of systems, which actually provides scoring mechanism, some sort of learning chapter which are also available on the screen. Merely adapting a video platform and then teachers coming in front of children and then narrating things is, I think, is a stopgap arrangement. And I think there are few states in India which has also said that the schools cannot charge fee until the situation normalizes. So I think the COVID has taught us a lot of lessons, and our younger generation is majorly impacted because of that. I think this is a big thing. So we decided to discuss this in two sessions. So Nagesh, thank you very much for enlightening us about the international laws which are applicable, and the government of India is ensuring everything as far as education is concerned.
Thank you very much, Chandrakant. It was indeed a pleasure being with you. Thank you so much.
It
See
was a
you.
pleasure, and we will catch up again tomorrow and continue the discussion of right to education.
Thank you. See you
Bye-bye.
tomorrow. Bye bye.